The Bell YFM-1 Airacuda was an American heavy fighter aircraft, developed by the Bell Aircraft Corporation during the mid-1930s. It was the first military aircraft produced by Bell. Originally designated the Bell Model 1, the Airacuda first flew on September 1, 1937. The Airacuda was marked by bold design advances and considerable flaws that eventually grounded the aircraft. The Airacuda was Bell Aircraft's answer for a bomber-destroyer aircraft. Although it did see limited production, and one fully operational squadron was eventually formed, only one prototype and 12 production models were ultimately built, in 3 slightly different versions. Design and development. In an effort to break into the aviation business, Bell Aircraft created a unique fighter concept touted to be a mobile anti-aircraft platform as well as a convoy fighter. Created to intercept enemy bombers at distances beyond the range of single-seat fighter interceptors, the YFM-1, Y, Service Test, F, Fighter, M, Multiplace, was an innovative design incorporating many features never before seen in a military aircraft, as well as several never seen again. Using a streamlined, futuristic design, the Bell Airacuda appeared to be unlike any other fighters up to that time. According to Major Alexander de Seversky's 1942 book, Victory Through Air Power, the Bell Airacuda represents a great engineering achievement. But its designation as convoy fighter is erroneous, since that requires different disposition of armament. With its maximum firepower directed forward, it really offers a preview of an effective long-range interceptor fighter. A forward-firing 37mm, 1.46 in, M4 cannon with an accompanying gunner was mounted in a forward compartment of each of the 2 engine nacelles. Although capable of aiming the cannons, the gunner's primary purpose was simply to load them with the 110 rounds of ammunition stored in each nacelle. The crew of 5 included the pilot and gunners, a co-pilot/navigator who doubled as a fire control officer, using a Sperry Instruments thermionic fire control system, originally developed for anti-aircraft cannon, combined with a gyro-stabilized and an optical sight to aim the weapons, and a radio operator/gunner armed with a pair of machine guns stationed at mid-fuselage waist blisters for defense against attack from the rear. An unusual feature of the Airacuda was the main door for entry. The door was opened and pulled down and hinges folded in on 3 steps for the crew to climb into the aircraft. Design flaws. The Airacuda was plagued with problems from the start. The lofty performance estimates were unobtainable as, despite its sleek looks, the Airacuda was heavy and was slower than most bombers. In the event of interception by enemy fighters, the Airacuda was not maneuverable enough to dogfight, while the meager 600 pounds, 270 kilograms, bomb load was of little use in the intended fighter-bomber role. Even the 37mm cannons were of less value than predicted. The cannons had a tendency to fill the gun nacelles with smoke whenever fired and, additionally, fears persisted as to how the gunners would escape in an emergency, with the propellers directly behind them. An emergency bailout would have required both propellers to be feathered, though additional provision was made with the use of explosive bolts on the propellers to jettison them in the event of a bailout. The Allison V1710-41 engines, though relatively trouble-free in other types, had no additional cooling systems. Like many pusher designs, they were prone to overheating. On the ground, the aircraft had to be towed to and from the runway and could only be started when the Airacuda was able to take off immediately. Even in the air it was not uncommon to experience overheating problems. Although designed for turbo supercharging, the first flights were made with V1710-9 carbureted engines that only delivered 1000 HP, 750 kilowatts, each. Despite the 5 feet, 1.5 m, long shaft extensions, there were no problems with this feature. When the turbos were fitted to the later YFM-1, they were plagued by cranky turbo regulators that backfired continuously. An explosion during a September 1939 test flight made it apparent that the teething engine troubles would not be solved easily. Additionally, Marshall Wainwright notes that other sources indicate the first 8 aircraft were to originally have been powered by Allison V1710-13 engines fitted with GE Type B6 turbo superchargers. These aircraft were eventually delivered with improved V1710-23 D2 engines. Wainwright further states that 2 of the YFM-1 airframes were changed on the production line to accept the V1710-41 without turbo supercharging, becoming YFM-1BS. This is noted in a contract change dated October 19, 1939, which shows that aircraft 38-489 and 38-490 had their turbos, all associated ducting, and controls removed, and V1710-41 D2A, altitude-rated engines installed instead. The D2A was essentially a -23 with higher supercharger gear ratios, 8.77:1 versus 6.23:1, which allowed the motor to develop around 1090 horsepower, 810 kilowatts, up to 13,200 feet, 4,000 m/ASL. They used the same ratings and components as the altitude-rated V1710-33, C-15, Allison fitted to the original Curtiss XP-40. Allison was paid $1,690 to modify each engine. Initial flight testing by Lieutenant Ben Kelsey proved the Airacuda virtually impossible to control with only one engine, as the aircraft would go into an immediate spin. Problems with stability in pitch were also encountered, and had to be corrected by reducing power. Test pilot Eric Schilling described his experiences in a later book, Destiny, A Flying Tiger's Rendezvous with Fate, as: "Flying the Bell Airacuda was a new experience for me, since it was the first pusher aircraft I'd ever flown. Its handling characteristics were foreign to anything I had ever had my hands on. Under power it was unstable in pitch, but stable with power off. While flying straight and level, if a correction in pitch was required, a forward push on the control resulted in the airplane wanting to pitch over even more. Pitch control became a matter of continually jockeying the controls, however slightly, even when the aircraft was in proper trim. The same applied if pulling back on the control. It would tend to continue pitching up, requiring an immediate corrective response. The same happened in a turn with power off. The Bell became stable in pitch. This was fortunate because during approach and landing, it was very stable, and a nice flying airplane. The Airacuda was also saddled with a complex and temperamental electrical system and was the only aircraft ever built to rely on an independent auxiliary power unit, APU, to power both engine fuel pumps, as well as all aircraft electrical systems. Systems usually powered by an aircraft's engines were instead powered by the single generator. The generator, with its own supercharger, was located in the belly of the aircraft. In the event of a failure, and they occurred frequently, the crew was instructed to begin immediate emergency restart procedures as the aircraft basically shut down. When the APU failed, the pilot had no fuel pressure, no vacuum, no hydraulic pressure, no gear, no flaps and no engines. Accidents. Despite the aircraft's many faults, only 2 were lost in accidents. The 7th aircraft, 38-492, was on its final test flight from the Buffalo factory prior to delivery to the Air Corps when pilot John Strickler, a Bell pilot, and engineer/co-pilot Brian Sparks, who was Bell's chief test pilot at the time, encountered problems recovering from a deliberate spin attempt which was part of the test flight profile. Despite every effort to emerge from the spin, the aircraft would not respond, and it appeared that the rudder had locked. Co-pilot Sparks shut down the engines and waited for the propellers to come to a stop before bailing out. Because of the tandem seating, it was necessary for Sparks to exit the aircraft first, and in doing so he struck the empennage, breaking his legs and in the process, freeing the rudder. Strickler decided to stay with the aircraft and attempt an emergency landing. By this time, the aircraft had lost sufficient altitude that there was not time to restart the engines. Strickler put the Airacuda down hard in a farmer's field, and walked away unhurt. The Airacuda was so badly damaged it had to be scrapped. All three Airacudas with tricycle landing gear encountered problems and were damaged at one time or another. The most serious accident occurred to YFM-1A, Model 8, 38-497, on a flight between Chanute Field, Illinois, and Keesler Field, Mississippi, when a broken oil line started a fire. The cause of the broken line appeared to be serious airframe vibration encountered during the flight. With no way of extinguishing the fire, both the pilot and crew chief agreed to bail out. The pilot was killed when his parachute failed to deploy. He may have struck the tail while bailing out. This was the only fatality to occur during the flying of Airacudas. The accident investigation report stated inherent defects in design caused constant maintenance difficulties and the flying of this type has been very limited. Operational history. Despite these problems, one fully operational Airacuda squadron was eventually assembled, and operated from 1938 until 1940. Funds were appropriated, but never released, for the purchase of two groups of Airacudas. Continuing problems gave the aircraft a reputation as hangar queens. Near the end of the type's operational life, the aircraft were flown primarily for photo opportunities and always accompanied by a chase plane for safety. Eventually the decision was made to disperse the aircraft to various airfields to give pilots an opportunity to add the unusual aircraft to their logbooks. Airacudas were sent at various times to Langley Field, Virginia, Maxwell Field, Alabama, Hamilton Field, California, and Wright Field, in Dayton, Ohio. YFM 138-488 was displayed at the 1940 World's Fair in New York, finished in the markings of the 27th Pursuit Squadron. During this time, the aircraft saw limited flight time, as few pilots were interested in flying the unusual aircraft. Several plans were made to modify the Airacudas to give them operational status, including modifying the airframe and adding more powerful engines, but all proposals were eventually rejected. In early 1942, despite fears of enemy bomber attacks against which the Airacuda was intended, the aircraft were stricken from inventory. Variants. The prototype, known as the XFM-1, incorporated a tail wheel, side blister ports, and a smooth, rounded canopy. This is the best known, and most produced version. An updated version called the YFM-1A eliminated the side blisters and added externally mounted radiators and turbo superchargers. Produced in 1940, the final version designated YFM-1B, was slightly larger, had slightly less powerful Allison engines and incorporated a tricycle landing gear. The canopy was redesigned, with a flat forward windshield. A rearward-facing belly gunner's position was also added. The resulting aircraft was roughly the size of a Douglas B-18 Bolo medium bomber. 3 YFM-1Bs were produced in 1939 before production was finally terminated. XFM-1 Model 1, prototype powered by two 1150 HP V1710-13 engines, 1, 38-351, built. YFM-1 Model 7, development aircraft powered by two 1150 HP V1710-23 engines and fitted with 37mm cannons in wing nacelles, 8 built, 2 later converted to YFM-1B. YFM-1A Model 8, development aircraft with tricycle landing gear, 3 built. YFM-1B YFM-1 re-engined with 1090 HP V1710-41 engines, 2 converted from YFM-1. YFM-1C Model 17, proposed variant not proceeded with. Scrapping. By 1942, all 9 surviving YFM-1 airframes had been flown by ferry crews to a training facility at Chanute Field, Illinois, where the aircraft were assigned to the 10th Air Base Squadron to be used for ground crew instruction. By March 1942, all Airacudas had been scrapped. Specifications: XFM-1. General characteristics. Crew: 5, pilot, co-pilot/navigator, radio operator/gunner, 2 gunners. Length: 44 feet 10 in, 13.67 m. Wingspan, 69 feet 10 in, 21.29 m. Height, 13 feet 7 in, 4.14 m. Wing area, 684 sq ft, 63.5 square meters. Airfoil, NACA 23018/NACA 23009. Empty weight, 13,376 pounds, 6,067 kilograms. Gross weight, 17,333 pounds, 7,862 kilograms. Max takeoff weight, 21,625 pounds, 9,809 kilograms. Fuel capacity, 400 US gal, 1,500 L. Power plant, 2 times Allison V1710-9 liquid-cooled turbo-supercharged V12, 1090 HP, 810 kilowatts, each. Propellers, 3-blade. Performance. Maximum speed, 277 miles per hour, 446 kilometers per hour, 241 knots. Cruise speed, 244 miles per hour, 393 kilometers per hour, 212 knots. Range, 2,600 miles, 2,259 nmi, 4,184 kilometers. Service ceiling, 30,500 feet, 9,300 m. Rate of climb, 1,480 feet/min, 7.5 m/s. Armament. Guns. 2 times 37 mm, 1.46 in, M4 cannons, 110 RPG. 2 times .30 in, 7.62 mm, M1919 Browning machine guns in front of nacelles. 2 times .50 in, 12.7 mm, M2 Browning machine guns, 600 RPG, inside blisters. Bombs, 20 times 30 pounds, 14 kilograms, fragmentation bombs in wing bays. Roll interceptor. National origin United States. Manufacturer Bell Aircraft. First flight September 1, 1937. Introduction February 23, 1940. Retired 1942. Primary user United States Army Air Corps. Produced 1937 to 1939. Number built 13. Program cost $3.6 million USD. Unit cost $219,000 USD.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.